So I want to say welcome to everyone. I've met some of you, and some of you I have not met. I'm Joe Curo. I'm the coordinator for the Boston chapter, and I'm very pleased to welcome all of our area pilgrims. I'm pleased to welcome some of our visitors from some of our other chapters around the country. I want to first mention that this event is being recorded. So if you don't want your image to show up on a potential recording, because we may consider publishing this to American Pilgrims YouTube channel, you can turn off your video. And I'd like to encourage all of you who are in the area to please consider getting involved with the chapter. We have in March, we have two events coming up. We have on March 12th, we're going to have a hike at Ponkapog Pond Trail. We'll be having a hike that's up in the Blue Hills Reservation. And then on the 19th, we're going to have a hybrid event in Westwood and online. 10 things I learned on the Camino. One of our chapter pilgrims is going to be presenting that. I've seen the presentation. I think it's well worth it. Just kind of a show of hands. I'm curious. How many of you all have already gone on your Caminos?
I'm trying to figure out.
I think probably a fair number.
Okay.
Okay. I see one hand, two hands. All right. I see a few hands going up. Great. Well, whether you have or you haven't, I think you're going to enjoy this presentation. So we have Deb Donovan is with us. She's one of our Boston chapter pilgrims. She's here. Her husband Dan is here as well. I met them first at one of the tertulias that we had right before they went on pilgrimage. And it was a great Camino story. They later met another pilgrim in the Boston chapter at our annual potluck and shell ceremony, and they ended up walking together. But while Deb and Dan were walking, they worked on like a phenomenal blog about their experience, and they used some really cool blogging tools. So Deb had offered to present a little bit about the blogging experience and about what she used. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her. So thanks, Deb.
Well, thank you. So I was not, the kind of the sky is the limit in terms of content or something like this. We can, get deeper into any of things that anyone would like to dive into. But what I thought I would start off is kind of at the mile high level and talk about blogging in general and why you might want to do it and not. And so helping you think through the decision of doing that, and then some of the different alternatives of options for doing that. So let me start sharing my screen here. Are you guys able to see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. And let me just minimize this for a second. Okay, all right. So first thing I thought we'd start out talking about is what is a blog? I mean, it's kind of a term that a decade ago I hadn't heard of. And I thought we should kind of start at the fundamentals and then talk about why you might want to blog and how you might do it, and then what to do with it afterwards. So essentially a blog is really nothing more than a journal of some sort. But what makes it a blog is you're publishing it on the internet in some way. Generally, should be some sort of regularity to how and when you post. And it would have a distinct purpose, or at least should, like in this case, my blog was about my trip to Spain. Other blogs that are out there, or people have blogs about things that they're cooking for dinner tonight. And so there's blogs pretty much about any kind of subject out there. And this one happened to be about a particular travel trip. And there are many different variations on blogging. So for instance, you can do a video blog, which is called a blog, publish it on something like YouTube. There's other alternatives to it. Even a paper journal is a type of blog. It's just, you probably will never publish it on the internet, but we did see people on the Camino with beautiful drawing journals. And you can just do a photo blog, just sharing Google photos with your friends, or just sharing them to your own files. And of course, you can get really fancy and do a voice blog, like a podcast, and with publishing it through something like Stitcher. I am not going to get into the techniques on how to do that, because I did a more traditional type of blog. But the first thing to really consider, and I hoped I picked some pictures here that would kind of illustrate the where you might be at any point on your Camino. The pros of doing a blog is you can kind of share things with your family and friends. You can capture the moment, and it can create a very great keepsake for you to be able to remember your Camino. I know in putting this slide deck together, I got lost more than once in just going through my blog again, just ending up rereading the things I had written, and just remembering where I was at that moment, and the highs and lows of doing such an undertaking, and was really grateful that I had taken the time to do my blog. But I will tell you that there are plenty of times when I was, feeling like I could slide down the slide, like my niece that's in this picture over here, that amazingly would still have energy at the end of the day. But more often, I was the guy over here on the right, kind of collapsing, and had committed to this blog, and needed to carve out time from my rest time to kind of getting things published. So it is a commitment. So the first step in doing a blog is really deciding what's the medium that you're going to use. And as I mentioned, there's many different mediums. And then it'll be, I would highly recommend doing some testing before you even leave. And then you're going to be doing some posting, and then you'll be wrapping it up. So in thinking about doing your blog, kind of, here's a little checklist that I put together of things that you might want to consider. How often are you planning on blogging? Do you want to be able to post every picture as you reach every milestone, which, in the first day, if you were leaving from St. John, you would have, several different locations in which you would be posting. And do you want to actually be posting live? Or are you okay with that fact of kind of collecting things and posting once a day, or maybe even once every few days? Who are you actually going to be posting for? Is this just some very specific individuals, or do you have a kind of a broader audience? And how savvy are they? If you're going to be posting this and using some pretty sophisticated technology that's going to require them to log in to something, you might want to consider something that maybe they're more familiar with, like doing something on Facebook. If all of or 90% of the people that you want to reach are on Facebook. I'm sorry, Joe, were you about to say something?
Nope, nope.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry, I'm going backwards here. Also think about what equipment that you're going to need in order to be able to do this blog. In my case, I chose Polar Steps. There's a similar product out there called Find Penguins, and they're very, very similar. I was going to do a little compare and contrast to the two, but really the differences are so minimal. Either one kind of works out very similarly. And I can take some questions about those particular products because I tested both of them. So we can wait and do that at the end if anybody's interested in talking about the particular product that I used. But all that was needed for me was my phone, a data connection, and cellular connections, and like GPS connection. And I was already planning on taking my phone to take pictures anyways, so there was no extra weight. I already wanted to have cell phone connectivity and data connectivity, so all I needed to do was to check out how much it was going to cost for a SIM card, which is how we decided to go with. We didn't go with like a Verizon plan. We actually put in a SIM card, and we can talk about that too if there's time. And that's it. So it really didn't, cost me anything additional to do this, except for the time that I was going to be putting in to doing the blog. Definitely something to really consider is how will this enhance and distract from not only your own Camino, but from the people who you are going to be traveling with. There were times where I made a decision that I was going to not participate in something because I was going to, everybody was headed off to a swimming hole. And if there was a choice between doing that or getting my blog uploaded, I decided to get my blog uploaded. And because I knew that I had friends at home who were literally following along with what was going on. We actually had our dog at home had injury just after we left. And so I was posting not only about my own journey, but what was going on with the dog back home. And so I had people who were literally logging in to my blog to find out, like had the dog gone for surgery, and did the dog need surgery, and so forth. And so I really felt committed to keeping friends, close friends updated on what was happening once I had shared that information. And I would also say you really need to reflect on how committed you're going to be about posting, because once you start posting and you post at some level of regularity, just keep in mind, especially like, I know somebody I was following on the American Pilgrims website, Facebook group. And there was a kind of frantic post that was happening last fall, where someone had been sending messages home about how they were doing, and they suddenly stopped posting. And people at home got panicked and thought this was a person who was in their 60s. It was a man in his 60s who probably you wouldn't have thought as being kind of a vulnerable person, but people at home were actually concerned about him traveling alone and were apparently reassured when he was making these posts, and then stopped posting. And there was this panic, and they started posting things on American Pilgrims trying to track him down, and did track him down, and he just simply stopped posting. And so I would just say, make sure that if you do start posting, you make sure that you are aware that people are reading your posts and and that if you decide that you're going to stop, that you're clear with them that you're going to take a break for a few days and not post, and that you're okay, etc. Especially if there's anybody who's like being, using this as a means of reassuring themselves that you're okay. Okay, and then, one other thing to mention. So, just as a side note, do you have the ability to do this? And I don't know how to say this in the right way, except to use myself as a scapegoat here. I had really wanted to do a sketchbook journal of our Camino. I had this vision that I like to draw, and that I was going to, now that I was retired, I was going to take out all this time, and I was going to be able to like stop and sketch things as we went along. And before I left, I had the foresight to actually go and take some art classes, just little free things at a senior center, and realized that I would be far too slow at being able to do anything like that, that it was just like, unless I was going to just take, and go for the year and just stop every few miles and spend my afternoon drawing one drawing, this was not going to be practical, and I needed to find some other way to keep track of my Camino. So, if you're, if you're not a great writer, don't plan to write these long blogs. You're not going to start becoming if those things take you a long time to do, they're still going to take you a long time to do when you're doing this. So maybe you want to do more of a photo-centric Camino blog. All right. Camino testing. One of the things that I'm really glad that I did before we went was tested out a couple of different products. I had gone on some forums, and people had recommended Find Penguins, and I had tested it out, and there were just some things about it that I didn't care for and hadn't been able to find a workaround. Now, I have since talked to somebody else who used it, and the things that I got hung up on, they didn't have any problem with. And if I had them as a resource in planning, I probably would have gone with Find Penguins. But I ended up picking this other product, Polar Steps. Now, both of these are free. The only thing that they require is you to create an account, and then they're using GPS to track you. They're using GPS to track you or your approximate location. I think you can turn that off if you chose to. I personally thought that was a great feature, especially that there was somebody who was traveling with us who's, as Joe mentioned, somebody who we met at one of the Camino events before we left, the Boston chapter events, and we decided to travel together. And she had been previously planning to travel alone. She's in her early 20s, and her mom was concerned about her traveling by herself. And her mom got logged in before we left. We made sure that her mom had access to the blog, and then her mom was able to see where we were. And it was, quite reassuring to her to know where we were, and that everything was good, and, and that things were going as planned. And so that was a nice feature of having GPS. Some people really want to disconnect on their Camino. And so doing something like a blog is probably not something that's going to be something you want to do if you really find that disconnection is one of your main points of doing this journey is to take that time. For me, it gave me time to reflect and put down my thoughts in a way that I probably wouldn't have been disciplined to do otherwise. But you can certainly do a personal journal and do that offline, and you don't need to be sharing that with the world. This was, a little bit more public. I did try out a couple of different options. I would say experiment with Camino conditions. Turn off your Wi-Fi connection, turn on your mobile data connection, or vice versa. See what you're actually able to do, and actually drive around. Like, I had the GPS turned on, and I literally drove to the coffee shop and I made this fake travel journal where I drove to the coffee shop and took pictures of myself and to see where I drove. And I just kept track of myself for 4 days, and I didn't share it with anybody. And just to see how it tracked me, and that I was able to really understand what it was going to be like to do this posting. And that is one of the things that made me decide which product I was going with. A month before, I'm calling it complete setup. Invite your friends and family and anybody who you want to be sure is able to connect, help them be able to get their account set up. And some of these require them to actually have a login. Others do not, they just have a link. And just understand, what's going to be required for the people who are going to log in to follow your blog. Can they just click on a link, or do they actually have to set up their own account? And then before you leave, post your first post. And I just kind of gave you a sample of these were still kind of part of my testing. This is a picture of my husband and I on the T. We took the commuter rail into Boston in order to start our Camino. And I took pictures from there just to make sure that everything was going okay. And while I was still on my Verizon plan, and everything is working fine, because when I got on the ground in Madrid and we swapped out the SIM card, I did another post and made sure that that was working. Still, I wasn't really on the Camino yet, but I was able to, sit in a nice, quiet hotel room and work through any of the issues that I might have had in posting, and make sure that my SIM card's working and all of that without causing any drama once we were underway. Because I knew once we got to St. John Pier de Port, I did not want to be wasting time on those issues. I would say do your research to make sure that you really understand what is going to require GPS only data versus when you'll actually need a cell phone to upload, and what you can upload over Wi-Fi. Pretty much you can do everything over Wi-Fi. And make sure that you understand how, if you want to actually post as you're going along, that posting live, if you're posting from Orison and you don't have their Wi-Fi login, you're using both cellular and data, and you're going to consume those things with posting photos. You're going to consume your data pretty quick. I posted virtually everything using free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi is readily available in almost every single albergue that we stayed at. And we did stay at albergues. We did either municipal or donativo albergues almost exclusively. And we had Wi-Fi, I think, in all but one location. So using our data was not an issue for us. I think Dan and I got some sort of like a bundle deal from Vodafone, cost us 10 euros each. We each put one in each of our phones. We both bought our phones, and it came with I think two or 4 gig of data. Danny, maybe you can remind me. We didn't use it while we were on the Camino. It gave us 28 days, and the only reason why we needed to renew was because our 28 days was up, and so we were able to renew. Although I will tell you that the Vodafone, it did do it all in Spanish, and we did it when we still had somebody with us who could speak Spanish in case we ran into any problems with it. So we made sure we did our renewal when my niece Shannon was with us, because she's fluent in Spanish. I also want to share something that I learned, and if you do take the time to read any of my blog, this is one of those times where my husband and I will say, the pot calling the kettle black kind of thing, or do as I say, not as I do. That you think about, if you're doing a blog and you're sharing it with other people, what is the tone and the length of the blog postings, that people only have so much time to devote to reading your posts. So getting to the point is great if you can do it. I did tend to do a little bit of storytelling, and maybe some of those stories got a little too long because they tend to do that. But one of the things I really tried to do is to keep, even when I was feeling really down, to keep my tone upbeat. People are going to be worried about you traveling. And I don't care whether you've done this, 10 times. When you're away and the people who care about you are logging in to follow you, they're doing it because they want to make sure that you're okay and you're having a great time. And there are going to be times when you're not having a great time. And I hope that in my blog, even though there were times that and there was a lot of times where I was struggling, I hope my tone always was something positive and looking like forward and trying to give myself inspiration to keep going, and that it wasn't like making any of my friends go, "Oh my God, I just want to come and take you home. You should come home." So I just try to, you might not agree with me if you do take the time to read my blog. I did try to be very positive. As I said, we had an issue with our dog back home, and that was very much a struggle for me when we were there. But I hope I did it and shared that, because once I shared that information, I did feel like I needed to continue to share it. That I did it in a way that was positive. So also, when we finished our Camino, I made sure that I wrote a kind of a final wrap-up post. This is probably one of my favorite pictures, is of my husband kissing the ground in front of the cathedral. And it is kind of funny because some horses do walk through there. So, but we were pretty all glad to have gotten there. We did continue on, and that was one of the, we continued on for another 2 weeks in Spain. And that was one of the considerations when we started posting, is did we want to continue to keep the blog going? And I did decide that I would do that, because I wanted to keep kind of one journal of our entire trip. But I definitely noticed that virtually everybody who had been following us stopped reading our blog as soon as we got to Santiago. Like, nobody followed the other 2 weeks that we were there. And that was fine. I still have a complete catalog of everything, or complete memory of everything that we did. in one place. I could have started a different one and just tried to merge the two together at the end, but I thought that would just be too difficult. The particular product we used, or tool I used, Polar Steps, has the reason why they're giving this to you free is that they are hoping that at the end of this, you are going to purchase a completed book from them of this, this, kind of beautiful blog that you've put together. And there is 270 pages. And I'll tell you, I tried to make sure that I didn't post more than 4 or 5 pictures a day. And yet this thing was 270 pages completed. And so I hadn't, until just this past week, even looked to see what the cost was going to be, because I just assumed it would be cost prohibitive. I thought this would be the reason why I would never do it. It ended up being that they, including shipping, 270 pages was going to cost 110 euros. So it very well may be something that I do decide to do and to keep. I had the friend I mentioned who went after us, and she used to find penguins, mentioned that they too had about 200 or 300 pages, and that it was going to cost them like $400 or $500. So you might want to, in your testing, before you decide which product to go with, and there are others besides those two out there. And this is something that you might want to do. You might decide that you want to go with one versus the other, just based upon what is that book going to look like if you decide that you want to purchase it. So I think that's everything that I wanted to kind of cover. I did want to thank Joe for, giving us time to kind of share this. That's my husband with his scruffy beard, which was part of a lot of the fun of our blog, was watching Dan's beard grow, as he's usually a clean shaven guy. And that beard was part of a lot of the comments of friends and family who were commenting back on our blog and giving us feedback. And by the way, that is also one of the things that I wanted in the blog that we did, is I wanted people to be able to comment in an easy way without having to create an account. And I believe they were all able to do that. So I think, Joe, I think if there isn't anything more, we can take some questions if there's any.
Okay, well, we have one question already in the chat, and I invite folks to either put questions in the chat or to unmute and ask them. We have a pretty small group here today. So the first question that we have is, did you have issues with bandwidth when you were uploading using Wi-Fi? I had issues uploading photos to Facebook when I was on the Wi-Fi, and had to switch to my Verizon data cellular to have any success.
Oh, I did not, actually. I didn't have any issues. One of the things we did have a little bit of delay on was I did a little bit of a cheat, which my husband enabled me to do. When I walked, I really relied upon my poles. And so I didn't do a lot of the photo taking in the end. I love to take pictures, but I did not end up doing a lot of the photos, because if I did, Dan and I would probably still be on the Camino because I would have got to go so slow to stop, take my picture out, whatever. So he did a lot of the picture taking. And at the end of the day, then one of the steps I had to do was get the pictures from him to me, and then take those pictures and then upload them to my blog. And the way we did that is I would take his pictures, and we both have Google accounts, and I would have him, I would take his phone from him. He'd hit the showers. I'd take his phone, and I would save all of his pictures to his Google Drive. And then from there, that Google Drive had been shared with me. I shared it to an album, and then I would select pictures off of that album to put on my post. Well, that saving to the Google Drive or to the Google photo album sometimes would take an overnight to refresh. So it would show it on his, but it wouldn't show it like available to me. And so I would immediately write my blog, but then I wouldn't put the pictures on, and I would always end up being like a day behind. It wasn't, I don't think it had anything to do with the upload. I think it had to do with how often Google was refreshing that shared album with me. So again, this might be one of the things that you test before you go and decide. I didn't use Facebook. You might want to ask other people who were using Facebook about, was this something specific to you? And maybe the plan you were using. Like we didn't have any delays with that with Vodafone. We didn't have any particular issues. Okay. And every Wi-Fi is going to be different. So if you were having problems repeatedly, I could understand if you had problems at one place, then you could blame the Wi-Fi bandwidth. But if you had problems over and over again, it probably wasn't the Wi-Fi. Maybe it was the plan you were using. So
I was the one who asked the question. And my husband and I were both having issues on the Wi-Fi. It would just take forever, and then it would just time out when I was uploading the photographs. So it might have been a Facebook algorithm, or when they're on in a Google Drive, they already may have been compressed enough to make it easier. It's hard to say, but I would have to go off the hotel. So hotel Wi-Fi, we were in some little tiny places and the Wi-Fi was terrible most of the time.
Yeah, we were in, I mean, like I said, we stayed in Donativos and municipal albergues, and I never had a problem with that. I mean, I did have one place where we didn't have Wi-Fi at all. But other than that, I never had any problems with the Wi-Fi itself. So,
okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have another question, Deb, wondering about whether or not you can limit who sees the blog, to limit it just to your family.
You can do the one I did. I had some people who were going to be logging on to this, who I wanted to make it very simple and literally give them a link. And then I said, all you have to do is just keep going back to that same email, and all you have to do is hit that link, and you can catch up on what's going on. Because these were people who were not technically savvy. And I wanted to make it really, really simple. But you can basically tell, like, say you just want to share it with your kids. And you can invite them to join, say, Find Penguins, and create an account. And then you only share it with those particular people who you have shared that account with, and then no one else can see it. So I did end up, because it did surprise me when all of a sudden I had shared, I had this link and anybody could do it. And so my, which was good, because my friend Adriana, who, from the Boston chapter, who shared it with her mom, it was easy. She was just able to forward that link to her mom. And if her mom wanted to send it to her friend or whatever, it would have been no issue. But I did end up with a comment from someone who I'm like, who is this person? And eventually they made a comment that made me realize, like, their connection. And it was somebody I knew through my book club. And I didn't realize that somebody else had shared the link with them. And so they were a book club member who decided that, oh gosh, you have a link from Deb? I'd love to follow her. And so she was following me on the Camino, and I had no idea she had an interest in it at all. So it was a little unnerving at first.
You might get a few more of those, Deb, because we put the link out in the chat. So the folks
and that's fine.
can see the blog and go check it out.
Yeah, and again, if I hadn't shared it in the way that I did, Joe wouldn't have been able to do that. I'm sure I would have been able to loosen it afterwards. But yeah, it's kind of public. I didn't, I also was careful. I don't know if you noticed, but I put my first post from Boston. I live 45 miles from Boston. So I didn't post it. Your Camino starts at your door. I did not post a picture from my house saying, I'm about to leave my house for 7 weeks. Come burgle me. And that is one of the reasons why I didn't want to post on Facebook, because even though you can create a Facebook group and make that group private, I do get anxious about how other people's settings are set up, and does something get shared that I didn't intend to share. And so I've always made a habit of, when we take a trip and I'm going to post something on Facebook, I post everything when I come home. And it's a little less exciting, but to do it that way. And that is why I wanted to find something different for this trip, is because I did want to post something more as we were going along. So I had too many people who were really wondering whether I was going to make it, including me.
Great. We have another question here. Do readers have to create an account Polar Steps if they want?
So that is why I originally picked Polar Steps, because they did not. And however, I found out, and I thought that on Find Penguins, they had to create an account. And I really didn't want to force my friends to have to create an account with with this thing just because of me. So that's why I picked it. Because I will tell you that I think the pictures of how Find Penguins put the pictures together in these nice little collages would have been kind of nicer. But it seemed to me that you couldn't do it that way. Now, my friends, like I said, that I've met since I came home from the Camino, I met some people who literally were leaving just days after from nearby us, who were leaving for the Camino days after we were coming home. And we've since have compared notes a little bit. And she used the Find Penguins, and she said, oh no, you do not have to create an account in order to be a reader. You do have to create an account in both products in order to comment. So if you want to comment, you have to be kind of an identified user. So, but not if you just want to view.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions we have in the chat. Does anybody else have any other questions? Going once, twice. Well, I think. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
Oh. What is the format of the book from Polar Steps? Does the copy go with the relevant photos? Are there photo captions? Can you adjust size of photos?
Yeah, so it's kind of slick. You when you get done, you hit a button and it says, do you want to, publish, do you want to print this and get it ready for printing? And it goes through a process, and it basically creates a virtual photo book for you. So you can see exactly what it would look like, how every page would be laid out. And then you can hit edit so that you can move the photos around, or you can decide that you're going to delete that picture or perhaps replace the picture. It is changing it in the, you're kind of like in a publishing view. So it's not going to change that original log that you did. It's going to change just the one that's going to be printed. So that's the right reason why I haven't actually done anything yet, because I actually want to go back and change my original blog, because I was doing things with my thumbs, and you know, there's typos in there, there's bad grammar, there's things where something auto filled in and it makes no sense whatsoever, or a sentence that I just left half done. So I want to fix all of those things before I do play with any of the format. But it has a nice little photo editing thing, and you can see exactly how every page is going to lay out. And then, you know, if you got to 273 pages and you said, you know what, 110 euros is too much money, I need to cut this in half, I am sure you could start hacking away at it.
Excellent. I think that's all the questions that we had. So thank you very much, Deb. I really appreciate this. I did get one question, a direct message about whether there'll be a way to access the recording. We do hope to put this up on the YouTube channel for American Pilgrims, which, give me 1 second, I can give you that address. It is, I'll put it out in the chat. I'd encourage you to go out there too. You know, all of you peregrinos and peregrinas, there's a lot of great there are a lot of great videos out there on the American Pilgrims YouTube channel as well. So to all the Boston Pilgrims, we hope to see you at some upcoming chapter events, and some of you from other parts of the country. There were a lot of other parts of the country that got posted in here: Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, lots of places. Maybe some of us will see one another at the annual gathering in Tahoe in April. So with that, thank you very much, Deb, and buen camino, everyone.